Yes, sir. Can do
In
it.
case it is static, you can
Yes,
do
ma'am.
it.
It is static only, ma'am. It's not moving. What should I do now?
The reason I told you, sir, you just switch it off and then you do it the presentation again.
You
Then you
refresh
do
it. Refresh it, sir.
Refresh it, sir.
So shall I stop sharing and again join?
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yes, yes.
refresh it.
நீங்க
Refresh it.
போடுங்க மேடம், ஒன்றும்
Refresh it and then do it.
ஒன்றும் இல்லை மேடம், ஒன்றும் இஷ்யூ கிடையாது. சிஎஸ் தான் படிக்கணும் மாதிரி இப்போ சிஎஸ் அங்கே இருக்கு. நான் அங்கே ரம்யால ஒரு நம்பர் தரேன் மேம், அங்கே சீஃப் சூப்பரண்டா இருக்காங்க ரெவன்யூ டிபார்ட்மெண்ட் தான். நீங்க ஒரு வார்த்தை பேசுங்க மேடம். இல்ல மேம், பிரத்யூஷா போறதோட இது பெட்டர்னு நான் யோசிக்கிறேன் மேம், வேற ஒன்றும் இல்லை. சரி.
Hearty welcome to Bindu ma'am. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Yeah. Just a minute, ma'am. Just I am sharing the slide and Lalita madam has joined. Is with us, ma'am.
Good evening, Bindu madam.
Good evening, Lalita.
Nice meeting you.
Nice to see so many of them here at 8 o'clock in the night. Most of us will be snoozing.
Waiting, passionate and waiting to listen to you.
எஸ்ஆர்எம் தாராளம் போகலாம் மேடம், ஒன்றும் பிரச்சனை இல்லை. எஸ்ஆர்எம் தாராளமா போகலாம். பிரத்யூஷா வேணாம் மேடம், பிரத்யூஷாக்கு பரவாயில்ல, இது பரவாயில்ல மேடம். சிட்டிக்குள்ள இருக்கு. ரொம்ப ஹை எக்ஸ்பெக்டேஷன் போக கூடாது மேடம். அது வந்து நான் பேசுவேன், அது போறதுக்கு சான்ஸ் இல்லை. பட் நார்மலான காலேஜ் மேடம், ஒன்றும் பிரச்சனை இல்லை. அது நீங்க பிரத்யூஷாவோட யோசிக்கிறது பெட்டர் மேடம். இல்லை நீங்க வேணா பாருங்க, எப்படி இருக்குன்னு பாருங்க. இங்க நான் அது வேணா சொல்லி விடுறேன், ஒன்றும் ப்ராப்ளம் இல்லை. அவங்க அந்த சீஃப் சூப்பரண்டா இருக்காங்க, அதனால நமக்கு சொன்னா ஒன்றும் ப்ராப்ளம் இருக்காது. இல்ல மேம், அது வேஸ்ட் பண்ணாதீங்க, வேண்டாம். எங்க படிச்சாலும் படிப்புதான் மேடம், எந்த விருப்பம் இருக்கும் படிக்க வைங்க. 1 இயர் வேஸ்ட் பண்ணாதீங்க. ஒரு வேளை நீங்க சும்மா ஜேஇ கிடைச்சா கூட விட்டுட்டு போயிடலாம், ஒன்றும் ப்ராப்ளம் இல்லை. அதனால நான் படிச்சுட்டா 1 இயர் சேவ், அவ்வளவுதான். விட்டு போயிடலாம், அது ஒன்றும் இல்லை, ஒன்றும் இல்லை. விட்டு போயிடலாம், அவ்வளவுதான்.
Now Lalita ma'am, could you please confirm whether it is full screen or off screen? Ma'am, is it visible fully, ma'am? Lalita ma'am?
The slides are visible in the side, sir. I want to, I told you just get the screen visible fully so that it will be visible.
Now is it visible, ma'am? Fully?
No. Even now also it is not fully visible.
Okay.
Even now also it is not fully visible.
It's not fully visible.
Let me try, ma'am, again. So I have no, actually I've opened the thing and from here I need to know.
Same way.
Same thing, sir.
Same thing. 1 minute, ma'am. I am trying again. So I have kept it open and again I am going for opening the screen and again.
There you do it now, sir. Present.
You are presenting. Stop presenting, I'll say, and again no. Wait, I'm doing it again. Your entire screen I am clicking.
ஒன்றும் ப்ராப்ளம் இல்லை
and
இது ஜேஇகா ப்ரிப்பேர் பண்ண சொல்லலாம். அதெல்லாம் இல்லை மேம், அதெல்லாம் ஒன்றும் ப்ராப்ளம் இல்லை. நீங்க எஸ்ஆர்எம் ஓகேனா ஓகே மேடம், ஒன்றும் ப்ராப்ளம் இல்லை. எஸ்ஆர்எம் சேர்த்து போயிடும், ஒன்றும் பிரச்சனை இல்லை.
Hope we can start, Sharavanan sir.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. 1 minute.
நான் அனுப்புறேன், நீங்க பேசுங்க சார். ஓகே.
Good evening, everybody. It gives me immense pleasure in welcoming you all for this 51st webinar series by our Revelta family. And now we have amidst us all these elite and learned colleagues and participants. And it's really amazing to have you all this evening. And I would like to request Professor Venkateshwara from St. Joseph Engineering College to moderate this session. Over to Professor Venkateshwara. And Professor Venkateshwara is an associate professor of English. He is an avid researcher, and he is also a trainer, soft skill trainer, and he has published many books, published various journals, both Scopus and Scopus Index journals as well as UGC journals. And he has been consistently and constantly pursuing the learning and development journey. And it's indeed our proud privilege to welcome him to moderate the session. Over to Professor Venkateshwara, sir. So over to you.
Thank you for your kind words. Thank you. And I take immense pleasure in welcoming you all for the World English Language Learners Teachers Training Association and the 51st International Webinar on Glen Phillips and Australian Landscape Poet. We have with us an eminent scholar, Dr. N. Bindu, Assistant Professor of English, Presidency College, Chennai, to present today. I take immense pleasure in inviting our sweetest volunteer, Ms. Vidyashri, a student volunteer from Vidyashram, Vellore, to extend the welcome note. Over to you, Vidyashri.
Good evening, everybody. This is Vidyashri from Srishti Vidyashram, Vellore, Tamil Nadu. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome you all for this 51st International Webinar on Glen Phillips, the Australian landscape poet, conducted by Revelta Forum. Thank you all for joining us. Happy learning to all of you.
Thank you, Vidyashri. So sweet. Yes, Madam is acknowledging. And I take immense pleasure, right? It gives us immense pleasure to welcome Dr. Nagakala Madam from Saudi Arabia. Every day she enlightens us about various topics. As we all know, Revelta is a forum where we actually discuss and we deliberate on various ideas. And today we have a different topic, a different perspective. I now request Ms. Prithika Balakrishnan to introduce the webinar chair. Over to you, Prithika Balakrishnan.
As Nelson Mandela says, education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. A warm good evening and welcome to everyone to this beautiful evening. Today, we have Dr. Ms. Nagakala Ma'am as our webinar chair. It is an honor for me to welcome Dr. Ms. Nagakala Ma'am on behalf of the World English Language Learners, Teachers and Trainers Association. Dr. Ms. Nagakala Ma'am is an assistant professor and an academician presently working at Imam Abdul Rahman bin Faisal University, Dammam, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. She has masters in English language literature, Hindi literature, child medical health and education. Her research is on dimension of language variation in advertisements, a linguistic approach. She has completed TESOL and TUE. Her teaching experience is for more than 30 years in countries like India, Sultanate of Oman, Libya, and others. She has presented a paper in many conferences in India and abroad, and has published articles regarding main journals of English. Furthermore, she has written articles on language linguistics in Scopus Index journals and noted journals. To mention some, one, Science in Canada, a generic misnomer recreational linguistics, insightful corpora with applied linguistics, the health call between the line of learning and teaching in computational linguistics. He has received appreciations and awards for her excellent teaching by the Ministry of Sultanate of Oman. She, a member of ELTA Taiki Saudi Arabia Health. It is a pleasure for all of us to have such a great personality among us. Thank you, Mom.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pritika ma'am. Over to you, Nakala madam.
Thank you, everybody, and a pleasant good evening to all the dignitaries and the students who are gathered here. Yet another day has come. This is the 51st session of our Welta webinar series, and today's topic is very interesting. As usual, every evening we will be having new things to learn and new aspirations and new goals for us to make a search or a research. Well, today's topic, as I told you, is very interesting because you know, the heading is like this. I mean, before going to the title of the paper, title of the presentation, or the presenter's name and all, I would just like to say, we hear some words like this: stanza, similes, metaphors, personification, alliteration, hyperbole, verse poetry, and oxymoron. So what all these words are? All these are features of beautiful poems and a poetic collection, and they are all well known for those, especially the poems written by Australian poets. We can mention many of them, and like Banjo, Patterson, and Henry Levison, and Glenn Phillips, like this. Today's topic is about Glenn Phillips, who is, the Australian landscape poet. Now we have to look at two dimensions here. One is the Australian poet, and the other one, he's a landscape poet, means a poet who describes landscapes and all. Why do we want to know about Australian poets especially is because of this, because of its geographical isolation and all the other things from the rest of the world. Australia came into contact with other countries very late, not like Shakespeare, not like Chaucerian and all. 14th century Chaucerian's collections we find, Shakespeare's 16th century we find, but Australian poems are just available for us from say probably around 100 to 200 years old. And so at that time, this made a poet's dream for words of future and dawning power of Australia. So the relationship between Australia and its colonizers, or whatever the other things are, was very, has also been mentioned by many poets. And it's notable that the area of the place, or the poetic vivid description, is there is a change in it, and over the time scale there is a change in it. It is an intriguing segment of literature. So it would remain constant that the focus of poets, Australian poets especially, has been its strange and wild landscape. And there, many to say. So let me just say of this is what I briefed of Australian poets. And just one point I would like to say about our Australian poet who Dr. Bindu is talking about. he was an honor. He's like, he's a poet, he's a short story writer, and he has, like, has served as an honorary professor and director of International Center for Landscape and Language, which he established at ECU with the professors of Andrew and Taylor and John, from 1990. So what we are trying to say here is, in most of the Australian poems, the imagery as such, that of Australian being, Australia being very very new to us from the Britain thing, like, okay. So the culture and the prospects which is prevailing there, it might be both colonial as well as the post-Federation works, actually, we can see in there this thing. But in Glyn Phillips' poems, we can see a lot of imageries and a lot of, descriptions. So I would stop here, and we are very interested to listen to Dr. Bindu from Chennai, and we would like to know what her idea is and what her perspective is about this poet and his contributions. So we are looking forward to listening to her, ma'am, and we welcome you, and thanks for giving me an opportunity to say a few words about Australian poets and the history of it. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for enlightening us. I now kindly request Valli madam, HOD Bargur College, to introduce the webinar presenter of the day. Over to you, Valli madam.
Thank you, sir. A pleasant evening to everyone. I deem it my great privilege and honor to introduce versatile and multi-talented personality, Dr. N. Bindu, Assistant Professor of English, Presidency College, Chennai, who is here to enlighten us about Glyn Phillips, an Australian landscape poet. To speak of her academic achievement, she has completed her bachelor's degree at Meenakshi College, master's degree at Ethridge College for Women, and has done a research on American comedy as a research scholar in Bharati Women's College, and has completed her PhD in Australian poetry from Ethridge College in the year 2009. Madam has more than 3 decades of teaching experience to her credit, holding various posts in various institutions. She started her career as an English instructor in spoken English Shabari College in the year 1990 and taught English at Sharvana Basveshwar Public School and Pre-University, Karnataka. She has rendered her service as English lecturer at D.G. Vaishnav College, Arumbakam, and as well as for correspondence students in Madras University. She has acted as counselor in Indira Gandhi Open University, New Delhi, in the subjects like technical use of English, communicative English for humanities and science and technology. She worked as a lecturer in APTEC from the year 1998 to 2002 for English literature, BTech, and in English as a foreign language for students from Korea. She has served as the HOD and lecturer in English in the Department of Languages, Alpha Arts and Science College, Porur, and she was also an English faculty at Miyot Nursing College and Miyot School of Nursing, Chennai. She was staff at Institute of Company Secretaries of India and staff in charge for Department of English in Madras Christian College, Self-Finance Stream from the year 2004 to 2010. She also worked as an Associate Professor of English in VIT University, Chennai, and as Assistant Professor of English in SS Government Art College, Tirutani, and is currently working as an Assistant Professor of English, Presidency College, Chennai since 2013. Madam has presented and published 8 articles so far in various reputed and peer-reviewed journals with ISSN and ISBN number, and has presented 7 papers and are waiting for publication for 3 and the abstract published for 4. She has attended 1 oriented course and 1 refresher course sponsored by UGC and in-service teacher development workshop on communicative methods for Part 2 English conducted by State Institute of English in January 2000. She has attended state-level seminar on innovative approach to English language teaching. Madam is the recipient of numerous awards. To mention a few, received research grant for 3 weeks from American Studies Research Center, Hyderabad, and Best Debater Award during the pursuit of her studies, and one among the Best Students Award from Etraj College for Women, Best Speaker at Max Muller Bhavan, and was offered scholarship to study German. She has also completed several courses such as Health and Hygiene offered by Health Education Service of the Voice of Prophecy and Effective Communication and Public Speaking conducted by the English Academy and Experimentation in Science by Doing. And she has been a personality and communicative trainer for various group of institutions and has given a voice and character for e-lessons. She has given a voice for educational institution for advertisement purposes and an English anchor and announcer in All India Radio, Chennai. She has been a scriptwriter, editor, anchor, interviewer on FM Rainbow, FM Gold, Chennai and Chennai B frequencies. She has released the audiobook A Home in the Sky novel by Kizhakku Padipagangal. Madam has supervised an MPhil thesis and she has published articles and poems in Hello Students National Magazine. She is a volunteer in International Science Conference conducted by Science MS, and she is the Vice President in Toastmaster Debating Club, and she has given a voice for recorded telephonic messages for corporates, and she is a soft skill trainer and conducted various workshops regarding that, and she has edited and is a proofreader in various journals. I am proud to announce that she was interviewed by Raj Plus channel in the year 2004 and 2014 and was covered by Dinamalar Kadir for Animal Rescue Operation. Thank you, ma'am, for giving me this opportunity. The floor is yours, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Madam.
I thought that we could have cut short that. Anyway, thank you so much for that elaborate detail. Let me commence with a quote from Henry David Thoreau. I love nature. I love the landscape because it is so sincere. It never cheats me. It never jests. It is cheerfully, musically earnest. I lie and rely on the earth. The whole issue today and our focus would be on the word landscape. So let me thank all of you for having joined in, especially the academicians and scholars. And the main reason why I chose Glenn Phillips is because this poet and I got in touch with each other when we go for international conferences. And he is one good individual who has his heart in the right place. So I thought I should introduce him to the Indian public because we are still not very familiar with Phillips' works, despite the fact that he has published numerous poems, which ranges from 400 to 700 poems. So the first person to use the word landscape was Joseph Addison in the year 1712. If we look at the history, the word arrived somewhere in England after the 5th century to denote a painting which presented the land. But it was a geographer, Otto Schluter, who used this term cultural landscape in the academic circles in 1908. Let us focus and try to understand this term landscape. A landscape, according to the Google definition, is the visible features of an area of land, its landforms, and how they integrate with the natural or man-made features. The character of a landscape helps define the self-image of the people who inhabit it and a sense of place that differentiates one region from another region. Now, it is also an art, a picture which represents a view of a natural inland scenery. Therefore, the natural and physical attributes of land together with the air and water, which of course should be kept in mind, changes over time and is made known by people who evolve in their perceptions and associations. Now, there are different kinds of landscapes. Let's just quickly go through the different types of landscapes. We have mountain landscapes, which means it is inclusive of mountains, narrow rivers, forests, villages, and steep roads. Then we have flat landscapes, flat land, wide rivers, farms, cities, and motorways. We have coastal landscapes, which includes cliffs, the sea, and tourist towns. Landforms is another term which includes hills, mountains, plateaus, canyons, and valleys. Now, a landform is a feature of the Earth's surface that is part of a terrain. A natural landscape, therefore, is made of a collection of landforms like mountains, hills, plains, plateaus, lakes, streams, soils, which all comes under this broad terminology called landscape. There is a difference between human and physical features. Now, both of these can be seen and experienced by us because it is all around us. The physical features are the seas, the mountains, the rivers, which are all natural, and they are here even if people do not exist or if people are not around. While human features like houses, roads, bridges are all built by the society. Can we study the landscape of a river? I think the picture there shows you, this is Australia. And that's a beautiful picture of Australia, which I thought we should actually watch because it is natural. A riverscape comprises the features of a landscape which can be found along a river. Now, most of the riverscapes include natural landforms like meanders and oxbow lakes, whereas the man-made water formations are the levees or the groins. The levees are embankments, which we actually build to prevent floods. China is always known to build embankments because they lose a lot of their villages by floods. And Perlis Buck is one of the best writers to talk about how the earth in her Nobel-winning book called Good Earth gives you a beautiful version of China and its land. Groins are low walls that are built out into the sea to prevent the erosion of soil and stone. So landscapes are important because they contribute significantly to our well-being and to the quality of life that we lead. It helps us provide a context where we live aesthetically and culturally, which means a meaningful landscape actually enhances the sense of our well-being. And no wonder we are so rooted to the land we live in. The Australian landscape is marked by historical, ecological, resource struggle, and of course, let's not forget, injustice. The Australian landscape, therefore, should be understood by addressing the erasures and the violence that took place during the period of colonialization. I am actually reminded of Charles Sturt. He was an explorer way back in 1933. And this was what he stated about Australia. I quote, "He who has never looked on any other than the well-cultured field of England can have little idea of a country that nature has covered with an interminable forest." Close quote. It is equally important for me to mention John Lotsky, who was a naturalist and explorer way back in 1839. I quote, "The Australian sky and nature awaits and merits real artists to portray it. Its gigantic gum trees, 40 feet in girth, some of them covered with a smooth bark, externally as white as chalk. The enchantment-like appearance of forests, mornings and evenings so pure and serene that the eye is absorbed as it were in the depth of the azure of the horizon. There is a whole system of landscape painting of the most striking character yet available for human art." Close quotes. Australia is a country that borders the Indian Ocean and Southern Pacific Ocean. It comprises mainland Australia, island of Tasmania, and several small islands in the Indian and Pacific Oceans. The terrain is mostly low, plateau with deserts. It is actually colloquially known as a land down under, according to the position in the southern hemisphere. I therefore want to introduce you to Dr. Glenn Phillips, who was born in the year 1936 in the outback of the gold mining town of Southern Cross, Western Australia. Most of his early life was spent in Western Australian wheat belt and the Jarrah forest of the southwest. He had farming grandparents who lived in the Avon Valley near Beverly, and this has been featured in his 2-volume poetry titled Over the Hills and Far Away, Poems of Western Australia Wheat Belt. During the World War II, fearing Japanese invasion, the family was forced to move to Perth, only to return to the country 2 years later in the year 1944. It was at the elementary school that Glenn Phillips began to write short plays and poems. Initially, it was for his schoolmates. When he began his secondary education in Perth, because he won a scholarship, he was able to attend the Perth Boys and the Perth Modern Schools. Another scholarship came his way, which took him to the University of Western Australia for a degree in education. After several years as a school teacher, he began to publish his own poems, but he had to wait till 1962. And that was when he returned to Perth as a lecturer in English at the Greylands Teachers College. He took over as the assistant director of Mount Lawley College of Advanced Education in Perth. There, he taught creative writing and English. He developed the school with intercultural and indigenous studies. He brought in BA degrees, bachelor degrees, and masters, along with PhD courses in writing and public relations in the Faculty of Arts. He went on to become the president of the Fellowship of Australian Writers and a member of the Australian Society of Authors. In Italy, he was awarded a scholarship to go through a program of the Italian language in a place called Perugia. It was there that he co-translated a collection of poems of Australian and Umbria with the poet and impresario. Impresario is an artist. It's a kind of painting. Dr. Walter Sacchetti, which is published in the year 1986. He had published a large number of poems, so many that I really admire him, that in spite of his late 70s and early 80s, he still continues to publish poems. And they have found themselves in print in journals and newspapers, both within Australia and abroad. The popular Celtic origin poetry reading group, which began with Bryn Griffiths and Shane Macaulay and Alan Alexander, was titled Poetry in Motion. Now, this ushered in a lot of fame for Glenn Phillips. And later, when the Australian Council for Arts decided to fund this particular group called Poetry in Motion, they went out and toured the outback. Australian outback means the bushes where the Aborigines live, and the suburban Australia. They were very well received. So they decided to go overseas, and they visited Singapore and Thailand with this group. You see Glenn Phillips, who was very young, and that's the young picture of Glenn Phillips. In the year 1986, they released an anthology with the same title, Poetry in Motion. And this actually got them a platform on both the ABC radio and on television. They were further commissioned for a major performance work on the Swan River. This has echoes of the Swan of, or the Bard of Avon of Shakespeare. And because you know that it was the early people who migrated from England, so maybe there is, the name are more or less similar to what you have in UK. So the Swan River actually ended up in a publication of the book called The River, A Meditation on the Swan and Avon. This book actually covers the historical and the geographical biography of Perth, which is one of the teeming cities in Australia. It has a Swan and Avon river system. So the focus of this was the historical and geographical biography of this river system. At one point in his academic career, Glenn Phillips veered towards a study of landscape, running in line with the new theories of eco-criticism. Phillips focused on landscape as a life skill. They compared the new landscape with the familiar elements of home or birth landscape, ensconced in the mind like a native language. Then they set out to learn a new landscape expressed within their work in print and on canvas. It is very important to note here that as an art practitioner, he joined the artist Judith Dinham to start the project Landscape and Artists. They chose Tuscany. I have a picture of Tuscany, which he has actually hand-painted. And let me tell you, these pictures were actually personally sent to me. So I picked up some of those collections, and I do not know if he has ever released them, but I thought I could use that in a forum like this. He chose Tuscany as a challenging contrast to the Australian outback. On their return to Australia, this group went on to start an online course called the Landscape and You. And it was supported by a 12-episode television series screened on the national television. Glenn has been involved with the Writers Guilds, with the leading poets like Catherine Susanna Pritchard Writers Centre, which is actually formed at the home of Pritchard in the foothills of the Darling Range east of the Perth city. In the year 1995, he helped establish the Peter Cowan Writers Centre on the Joondalup campus of the Edith Cowan University, north of Perth. He's been an active member of this administration. I have chosen actually 3 short poems of Glenn Phillips because I thought we will choose the 3 poems and I will allow you to ruminate and we will have a discussion on the 3 poems. Now, after he retired, he, like how Madam did tell you, he continues to be the honorary professor of this international center. He had a great connection with the nation China. In one of my encounters with him, I remember asking him what his opinion of China was, and this was what he had to tell me. He said, the world views China very differently, but the people in China are very friendly. There were a lot of exchange programs between the center, which was actually started by Kinsella and Taylor, along with Glenn Phillips. And these exchange programs saw the poet spending a long duration of months in China. It was then that he published over 200 of his poems in China. But the greatness of the fact is not that he published in China, but that many of his poems were translated into Chinese. So he has about 15 poetry publications, inclusive of the latest bilingual, The Woman River, Poems of Australia and China. In The Hollow of the Land, which he published in the year 2018, he has around 400 poems and 40 sketches. I told you he was an artist, and some of them are incorporated into my slides. Something about Glenn Phillips, which people normally don't know and normally don't talk about, is his passion of vintage cars. And he has more than 6 to 7 cars in his home. And he takes great pride in keeping them prim and thing. He also has a lovely garden in his home. He has too many awards. I think the next, yes, one of this, this is his car, and I think this is his garden, which he personally sent to me to tell me that they have all bloomed. And I was taken aback because what you see here is a cacti. It's a xerophyte. I hope you know a xerophyte is that which does not need a lot of water. It is the xerophyte which actually has bloomed. And he had sent me this picture, and it tells you how beautiful Australia actually is. Can we have the next slide? These are all Glenn Phillips art. So take a look. It's all what he has painted or sketched. We call them sketches. Actually, he had, for everything, given me a small version at the end of it, but I think when I was sharing it, I lost. I do not know. Yes, it is here. This particular thing was about this John C. Ryan and Glenn Phillips was what he actually sketched for one of his books, titled Seeing Trees. You can take a look of all the thing. I think you'll have to go, please put your hand in and then enlarge it. I think that's the best way. They're actually very, very beautiful. Unfortunately, I think some of the beauty is lost as I did it on my, but I did take it from the net, but because I had them all in my mail. But yet I think the clarity is slightly lost here. Can we have the next slide? These are all his personal pictures that he had sent, and I thought you should all see Glenn Phillips in action. The lady, the first picture, that is Rita, his wife, his long-standing wife. And you see Glenn Phillips. It was the launch of one of his short stories. So he's not just a poet. He's not just an artist. He also writes short stories. He's a brilliant man, and like Da Vinci. Da Vinci was a sculptor. Da Vinci was a painter. Da Vinci was a thing. So is Glenn Phillips. The next slide. Okay, this is just to tell you that how Glenn Phillips, with a stroke of the paintbrush, can make his land come alive. So with the stroke of a pen, can make the land come alive in words. The next slide. This is the poem called Dual Flight. I don't know. Can I have the? I think the poem must be there. Yes. I'll just read the poem. I'll read the poem. And then you can always discuss it before I can move on, or discuss it at the end of it, whatever. Just give me a minute. I'm just looking into where I have the poem. All right. Dual flight, setting at Yokrakeen Rock 2001. We'll take a minute break. May I have that video, please? Which is sent through WhatsApp. I want you all to see this Yokrakeen Rock. These are all Aboriginal words. I just hope you can see it clearly. Basically, because we have minimized. Yes, please watch this. This is the Yokrakeen Rock. I think it is Yokrakeen or Yokrakeen. I'm not very sure. Let me tell you, academicians, this is a land which was formed out of granite. It's a granite rock formation. It is located 25 kilometers north of Tamil in Western Australia, in the Wheat Belt region where Glenn Phillips was born. Look at the beauty of this nature. So it's all, this is natural. It's not man-made, it's natural.
No doubt one can become a poet.
Yes, exactly.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Bindu ma'am, for taking us to Australia.
West Australia.
Beautiful. Yes. Now that I've been there, it's a beautiful place. Especially because Glenn always makes it a point to send some beautiful videos of the places he goes to, and it's just out of the world. See the rock, it's made of granite. Alright, so let's go to the poem. We'll take just a second so that we can get back to the poem. Yes. Setina at Yokrakeen Rock 2001. Light shows two hawks in high flight, dueling above dawn's rock pool. Deep down in stone fissures creep roots of seeds. Each root creeps towards water. A deep pool this time hosts the dueling flight of white moths seeking light. Now, why nature and how nature? He uses this place, Yokrakeen Rock, he uses that as his background. And the subjects here are not human beings. This is what we call as ecological study. The subjects are the hawks that fly high at the break of the dawn, and the moths which want to reach the light. So it commences with two hawks and it winds up with the flight of two moths. Or it need not be two, white moths, whatever. Look at the difference in the sizes of the creatures of nature. So why do you think there is so much of landscape? See the stone fissures he's talking about. The stone, the whole thing is made of granite. So the stone fissures are those small caves or small holes which are weathered because of the constant beating of the rain or the wind. and it forms pools of water. And the way he talks about the Kunzias. Now, you must understand, all these are Aboriginal words. And he's saying that Australia cannot live without the Aborigines. The Aborigines are so close to nature. They are the natives. And Kunzias is like our Kina Nalli. That helps in some kind of, it helps in the revival of the liver. Kunzias help in the itching that happens on the muscles or on the skin. So for thousands of years, they have been using this shrub. It's a shrub. Is there anybody who has a doubt?
No, ma'am.
Sorry.
Go get, ma'am.
Yeah, okay. I thought so. The Kunzias are shrubs, and these shrubs are actually medicinal plants which are used by the natives, that is the Aborigines, for any kind of skin rash or muscular spasm or pain. And like how we use our herbs, we have a lot of herbs that we use, our medicinal thing, inclusive of tulsi. For them, this is a very important plant. So see how Glenn Phillips, being a settler, has decided to weave in the landscape so beautifully. And you must also understand, he has completely marginalized the human eyes that actually watch nature in its serenity. So at the dawn, at the break of dawn, we have two hawks in high flight. We have the moths who are fighting with each other to see the bright light. And we have the entire ground surface, which is of rock, and it is decorated and ensconced with small puddles of water, and it faces the sky, where it also is probably just waking up at the break of dawn. So this is a small kaleidoscopic view of Australia, especially of Western Australia, where he lived most of his life. The next poem. Now, I told you he and a few others brought in a new study. Now, the study was, let's think of R.K. Narayan. R.K. Narayan's Malgudi is a place which was imaginary, but you know that it exists in our mind because we lived in that kind of a village. We lived with those kind of people. We lived in a society like that. So, but he just created a name and brought in people who are alive and put them into that place. Now, how can we compare one land with another land unless you visit lands? So, Glenn Phillips believes that when you want to compare and when you want to talk about the intrinsic details of a particular land, the positive aspects of a particular land, one has to do comparisons. So when he went to China, his observation of the Chinese culture, like how we do comparative literature, one should understand the subject or the culture of that particular place without prejudice and with that objectivity, which will actually retain retains the native flavor. And that was what I think Glenn Phillips persevered in this particular poem, where he brings to life China based on his experience in the arms of this land. So let's just go through these lines. The Woman River at the Dragon Boat Festival. I have, this is Australia. Oh, okay. Let me do this then. I thought The Bush Driving at Dusk is another poem. This is again a very short poem which talks about Australian bush. I actually wanted to intersperse it with China, but it's okay. We'll do the Chinese poem later. In this particular poem, which he wrote in 2015, it's about a young Glenn Phillips going out with his father and how they depend on nature. At the same time, they sustain this nature. And the sustenance is what comes back to him, because in this sustenance, in this relationship that Glenn Phillips strikes with the land, there is a comfort which is equivalent to the comfort a child receives from the secure fold of his parents. Now you mention it, that's a memory. So many times with father we returned from gathering firewood in the dusk, yearned for the glow of bush branch and temporary warmth to bask in before bundled to bed. Australian outback in the evenings are very, very cold. So he's talking about how he wanted to have that warmth just before they were put to bed. And of course, mother needed good store wood. So father had found where a dead tree stood miles away. Please look at that affinity that the father strikes. He does not go to axe a tree which is close to his vicinity, but travels miles to that dead tree, so that there is a mutual give and take from nature. You give me, I sustain you. It's so well mentioned and so well hinted in the lines when he says, and of course, mother needed good store wood. So father had found where a dead tree stood miles away. Please make a note of the distance they travel just to get that wood and not hurt those living trees. The respect that they have for nature comes alive. Chopped those fallen boughs instead. Once again, the boughs that are fallen, they don't, there is no felling, but what has already fallen is what is being taken. I think there are a few lines further. I think probably on the next slide, but let me just read. Yes. Chopped those fallen boughs instead. Bush driving at dusk with lights still dim. The scuttle of a rabbit under wheel reminds us now of the times we would feel safe in the old car in the care of him, referring to his father. At dusk, the world contracts to elemental things. This again is the spirit of the Australian land, which he says comes alive at dusk with the different kinds of sounds that emanate from nature and the environment. Our children trusting in what simple comfort brings. So there is this word simple, which actually defeats materialism, defeats the skyscrapers, defeats the condominiums, defeats all the man-made physical features that we first initially spoke about. I'll just read this once again, and if you have anywhere a doubt, any one of you, you could ask me. Now you mention it, that's a memory. So many times with father we returned from gathering firewood in the dusk, yearned for the glow of bush branch and temporary warmth to bask in before bundled to bed. And of course mother needed good store wood, so father had found where a dead tree stood miles away, chopped those fallen boughs instead. Bush driving at dusk with lights still dim, the scuttle of a rabbit under wheel, reminds us now of the times we could feel safe in the old car in the care of him. At dusk the world contracts to elemental things, our children trusting in what simple comfort brings. Finally, I thought I will take you to China, because we had Australia. Now we are talking about the poet who spent many months together in this exchange program in China. And I wanted you to see how Chinese landscape can come alive in a landscape poet. And therefore, I've chosen this last poem for us for discussion. I remember the dragon boats. We'll have pictures of the dragon boats. On the river, the detonations of fireworks, the beating drums. It was tribal. It was like war as the sweating boat crews strove to defeat each other on that dark green glittering trench between festive phalanxes on the banks. This is just like probably a scenario from Kerala, where we have these boat races held just before Onam. So I don't think we will have great difficulty in imagining this. And after each stretch of river traversed amid the fierce thunder, then on a stroke, the glistening rowers rose as one from their seats and turned. Next slide. Are we having a problem? Can we have the next slide? Yes. So you can look at the pictures. These are the Chinese rowers. Please move it up and down. These are the Chinese dragon boats. You can see the boat. At the head of the boat, you have a dragon. That is why they are called as dragon boats. And they have their own story of these dragons. It's their culture. And that is what Glenn Phillips was enthused to write a poem on. And after each stretch of river traversed amid the fierce thunder, then on a stroke, the glistening rowers rose as one from their seats and turned. Then facing the other way, crouched and dug deep their stiff paddles once more, eyes fixed ahead in victory trance. The last stanza. Next slide. Please move the script along with the picture that I have inserted. There are moments in all lives when the dragon's breathing fire catches in our own throats. Bodies are narrow boats on festive streams, and the rower plunges each deep stroke. Eyes are fixed to where the shine on the river's form dazzles, and then the dragon roars. The word life skill that I used is for you to contemplate on in this stanza. This is actually held as a competition. So it becomes a skill. Rowing becomes a skill for the Chinese, and it becomes a competition. It also becomes an art. It also is a reflection and a replica and a mirroring of their culture. So we have China, and we have the river system that comes alive because of the connection between rowing and the river, because of the connection between their culture and the river system. I hope you know that China cannot in any way move itself away from the water system. The lives of the Chinese people are so much in connection, in connectivity with the water system. So most of their cultural characteristic aspects or whatever have to do with the land, with the river system, and especially with the embankments, floods. They are constantly inundated with floods. They are constantly subjected to deluges. So that's how Chinese live. And many of them, they have their villages washed away and then they once again start their lives. So here is China through the eyes of an Australian landscape poet who has used objectivity to bring Australia into the center, talk about the Australian culture, and he says our bodies are all highly focused when you want to do anything. And the drive is the fire. The dragon actually opens itself only when it wants to protect itself or it wants to kill its enemy. So that it can, I think I've never heard of a dragon. Probably what the dragon does is it roasts and eats, must be. How else is this fire useful for a dragon? I'm not very sure. Must be for protection and also must be for it to eat. It says it is mythological, but then we had dinosaurs. So dinosaurs were not so pretty different from the dragons that is mythologically ensconced in the Chinese culture. So we have the beauty of the land terrain. We had the granite of Australia. We also had the air, which was pictured by the flight of the hawks. We spoke about the small creatures like the moths. The moths don't fly very high. They are very, very close to the ground. Not mostly. Even butterflies, they have one limit of flying. So we have a picture of that. Then we have the picture of a land, the forest, of the trees in plenty, yet the trees are not severed for selfish use but protected. And here man only makes use of that which is already dead, talking about the preservation and conservation of nature and the eco connection, the ecological connection of the poet's family with the land. And finally, the space, the geography of a land beyond Australia, their culture, and the kind of connection they can have with their land. And one must always respect land wherever it is beyond one's boundary. Anything that is beautiful, anything that is natural, anything like the land which is not man-made, not just requests but demands our respect, because we can never at any point cultivate or make something parallel to nature. So on that count, I would probably invite questions. Let's learn something together.
விளையாட்டு கூட அது குச்சிக்குது சொல்லாமா?
Okay, so
Ma'am, we can go get now.
Sir, madam is muted, I believe. No.
okay, I'm sorry, I didn't know I'm muted. Yes, so as I was saying, I thank Lalita for having introduced me to Saravanan, and I wanted to use this platform to introduce one of my good friends and a poet who actually is a poet of par excellence, a good human being. So I thought there are a lot of things which we can learn from his poetry, a lot of understanding that can be arrived from his writings. And so I just chose 3 small poems for us to analyze and understand. I do welcome questions, and if there is something that I am not able to answer, probably I would always do it through a WhatsApp message later. So if there's anything that you want to ask. I hope
Good
you all
evening, ma'am.
enjoyed. Yes.
It was a wonderful presentation and good to know about this poet. Actually, in fact, I did read his biography and all that also. It was, but you, as his friend, saying us or narrating his some of his poems and describing and all was very wonderful. It was very. It's of course his poems and his works and his he as a human being is really an inspiration to the youngsters. That is what I could say. And
Yes.
does he know that you're presenting about him today?
No, I didn't actually. He is very, very, at this age, I tell you, he is so good
Yeah.
at correspondence. But personally, I have absolutely no time, and I'm hard pressed for time because of my other activities.
I
And I think I should tell him that I did go on thing and I tried to introduce his writings. In fact, if any one of you really want him to come for a webinar, I think I can make
Oh, that would be really wonderful. You know, like last year, VIT people.
Dr. Saravanan can make another arrangement.
Yes, so I can
welcome.
VIT people had invited David Crystal last year, and it was very good to listen to. Though we read their books, if you listen to their words from their mouth,
Yes,
it would be
no,
really.
because it makes a lot of difference. It really makes a lot of difference.
No, it's not that way. It's like, you know, we will see like, okay, this person.
You will learn about Australia.
Yeah, when Dr. Raja Rao had come to Mysore, and when we were still master degree students, and when we attended, of course we were like so excited, you know, though we I don't know how much we understood that time, but after reading all his works later on, and when we became really matured enough to know about literature and all, it was so good. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for introducing and giving it was indeed a very good presentation.
I did justice for this great writer, but there is something else that can be done in case you want to rope Glenn Phillips in. I could probably ask him if he can give us the time or find out, because he was not keeping too well some time ago. But I think he should be all right. So I could ask him, and he could probably give you a small insight into Australia. You know, take you on a small tour into Australia, and that would be very nice. He can tell you about the Aborigines, and I don't know if you all know, but the Aborigines had connections with the Tamil population in Tamil Nadu. There are a lot of words in the Aboriginal language. Yes, which is familiar with what the tribals in Tamil Nadu use and speak.
One of my friends has done a research, and they have found out something like even the some of the African people have a connection with Tamil Nadu, they say. She has done some research on that, and she had presented a paper. Some 10 years ago, she had presented a paper, and her research was not complete at that time, but with little information, she had mentioned this point, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Yes, because I believe I got to know that only through this. There are these dancers. I forget, there are a couple dancers, very famous dancers. Can you just help me with their names? They had been to Australia, and they said they discovered so many words. And that
you mean the classical dancers?
Yes, the Bharatanatyam dancers. They are a couple. They're a beautiful couple.
What is that? There is one Dhananjaya and his wife.
Yes, so they were the ones to speak, and so did Padma Subramaniam. She too spoke on that platform,
yes,
talking about how Australia and India had so much in common. So thank you so much for listening to me, and thank you for giving me an opportunity. I should thank the professor who actually took a long time to introduce me. I thought, its appearances can be very deceptive. I thought that could have been condensed because. Anyway, I thank her for having been so generous.
Bindu Madam, good evening. Bindu Madam,
Yeah.
good evening.
Good evening.
This is Veera Raghavan from Coimbatore, Tamil Nadu.
Good evening. How are you?
Not only your speech, photographs, presentation, everything so beautiful, madam. Okay?
Thank you,
The
sir.
description and the aerial view is unforgettable. But whatever may be the country, especially you have chosen those videos and presented us.
They're all the true pictures of
The
Australia.
flowers, mountains and all, very joyful, madam. Especially the last word you have mentioned, the mind and the land can't speak no lie. Can't speak no lie is unforgettable words, madam. Really so beautiful. It's well carved, madam. Okay, thank you. Thank you for your wonderful presentation and your efforts to prepare this presentation. All the best, madam.
So coming from an erudite professor like you, I think I should humbly take it. Thank you so much. Though it is not on
It's a
par
pleasure,
with what you say, I think you're being generous. Thank you so much.
Really, we enjoyed, madam. Okay, especially
Thank you, sir.
no, everybody can enjoy the nature. Out of that, the words are properly carved. The poetry and your presentation and all. Really, very joyful time, madam. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Good evening, madam. Hello.
Good evening, sir. Good evening.
I am A. Srinivas from Andhra Pradesh, madam. You have given a wonderful presentation. It's quite insightful and way of presentation and pick up the pictures and giving some examples and illustrations is wonderful. Thank you very much for your nice presentation. It is only
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you.
The floor is open for discussion. If you have any questions or if you want to add on, you can do that.
I'd just like to tell the participants, I think we have lost our touch with nature. And unless we go back and learn to live in the arms of nature, we can't be complete. That's what I feel. We can never be complete. We might be very religious, very spiritual and all that. But we are just a small particle on this universe. And if we cannot admire the nature around us, I think we have lost a lot in life. So I just wish we would go back to nature and appreciate whatever is there around us. Whether it is a dog or a cat or a crow, instead of pelting stone, if you could just look at that creature and think, okay, this completes our life, this completes our surrounding. I think that would be the best source of respect we can ever show towards our environment. Because I think, I don't know if many of you know, the Judaism and the Christian religion is being more replaced by environmentalism, which has become more of a religion now in European countries. So nature has become more important. So I wish we would go back and think of probably what Frost said. Think beyond. Good fences make good neighbors. It is not so. Let's think beyond and get back.
Mending wall. Frost's mending wall says good neighbors make
yes, that's the line.
Yeah,
they say good fences make good neighbors.
Yeah,
So
well said, ma'am.
beyond.
Really, truly, we should have a heart to enjoy the nature and to protect it, especially. That is very.
Which we don't. For example, if our neighbor's dog barks, we think it is a nuisance. If a dog wanders in, we think it is a nuisance, it would bite. See, fear is one of the main culprits for our antagonism towards nature. And nature is so harmonious. Even if there is a snake which slits into the house, unless it senses your fear, the snake would just go on its way. It would not harm. But the snake, when it senses your fear, will surely hit you back because it then gets scared of your reactions. So it's all to do with psychology. And if you can just love nature, I think I admire a Buddha who lived a very meaningful life. And our meaningful life is in condominiums and in flats and in front of the TV with mobile phones, moving in cars, no walking, no looking at the trees, no listening to the sparrows. I wanted to share an experience with all of you. It's a personal experience. There was a particular person who kept telling me that he's vegan. Vegan is a person who does not even drink milk, and was trying to tell me that veganism is good and all that. So I was very appreciative because very few people really think about other forms of life. And it so happened that in one particular conversation, this person had to tell, I can't stand this dog. We have a status. And he said, these birds, there were a lot of pigeons, these birds give me a headache. And that's when I realized everybody has two sides to a coin. If you love nature, you will never think that there is disharmony and that it can cause you pain. So the minute you say it causes you pain, it's because you have not found your harmony with nature. Can the sounds of the birds be a sound of pain? I found it very difficult to actually understand this person. But yes, that's how individuals are in this land. We pray, we pray to a snake god, to a peacock, or to a thing, and then or to a cow, and yet we hurt all of them. So, as academicians,
Nehru says in his book.
Yes, we as academicians, I think we should go out to our class and tell our children we had ancestors who respected all forms of life, not just in the book or in the myth, but in real life. Let's go out and do that, because that's what literature teaches us. And that's
that
what
is the reason. Yeah, that is the reason why in Hindu mythology, otherwise in religion, Hindus religion, that peepal tree, otherwise neem tree, neem trees, and again even a crow or a dog, everything is worship. And this maybe people would say that it's idol worship or it's not good and all. But that is one of the reasons, how people can live amicably with nature as well as get united with nature. That's why people, in ancient days, since our ancient days, people started worshipping earth, water, then again the rains, and again, even air, all these things, and even the sky, the moon, the sun, and all the other planets. It means that we are becoming one with the nature. That is the reason I feel that it's actually, quantum physicists, they say that we are the extension of the space, and human beings and are parts and parcel of the space. And that is that's what the greatest of the greatest saints in who lived, like Siddhas in South Indian greatest of the greatest philosophers. They said we are nothing but the transformation of the space. So that is, as you rightly said, we have to live in harmony with the nature and our own self as well. As this is maybe this is a fraction. We are all the fractions, and the totality is the entire Mother Nature, I would say. So that is how we need to live a meaningful, happy, and harmonious life. Provided if you learn to appreciate nature, that is nothing but appreciating ourselves and loving ourselves. That will take us in a big way to live a meaningful and harmonious life. Thank you, ma'am, for this wonderful presentation. We thoroughly enjoyed. Bindu, ma'am, we are looking forward to have your presentations also in the future.
Just one word, Shravan sir.
Yes, ma'am. Go on, ma'am.
Yeah. See, I was listening very intently to the whole webinar and all the comments that have followed. I'm trying to make a point where we lack. We lack because practically, see, we have studied Wordsworth in our own childhood, and that's what we are teaching, and then we are talking about nature and everything. From the beginning, from where I have studied literature to today, we have been endorsing the point that nature is an integral part of our existence. Actually, what happens is that practically we do not connect people to the soil, to the vegetation, to the animal kingdom. So that is where the theory and practice gap, which Madam had said, we are not in harmony with nature. So it is the same thing, put in different words, that the harmony lacks because practically we are not uniting with nature. Unless we put our hands in the soil, or say for one reason in the cow dung, we will never realize the dignity of these things. So whatever nature gives us in its sublime form will be realized by any person when the person is exposed to that form of nature in a practical form.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I think that is the fact, because as I told you, this personal experience, I don't know, one of the important things that she forgot to tell about me is that I'm an animal activist. And I find it so difficult to live in a society they don't understand. No, they don't understand. They think that we are having fun when we rescue a dog or a cat, and what I would suggest is, if you're not able to do it, is fine, but please don't put a spoke into the wheel of those who are trying to do something. So it's very sad. They don't understand, and they're very cruel to animals. Very cruel. Which, in spite of Bhairavar, or which spite of the mouse which Vinayaka has, or thing, does not. It's not translated into reality like what you just observed. So unless we do that, all that thing is just an illusion.
Exactly, ma'am.
Thank you so much for your observation.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. And it was a wonderful session. I was really mesmerized by it.
Thank you so much for your kind words.
Thank you, Dr. Bindu.
Thank you.
Excellently done.
Thanks, Lolita.
It's wonderful, really. I felt you were just having your session in air. I really felt the liveliness.
Thank you. Thanks.
Wonderful it was.
So thank you for joining me and for giving me your time. Thank you, Saravanan.
Thank you, ma'am. It's really wonderful listening to you, and we thoroughly enjoyed it. And we are looking forward to have your sessions in the future too.
I'd like to join you, but as I said, I have so many things that I'm.
I know you are all you are really extremely busy, and despite your busy schedule, you have taken time off to honor your commitment. And I must thank Professor Lalitha Soundarajan for giving the lead in getting Dr. Bindu Narayan ma'am for our Velta family. And it was really an amazing time we had, and we have realized our own self now, that we are part and parcel of the nature, and we need to live with nature. That's an amazing insight for all of us. Thank you, Lalita ma'am, and thank you, Bindu ma'am, for gracing the occasion. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Saran. Thank you, Lalita. Thank you, all the participants.
Excellent presentation, ma'am. We really understand the necessity for appreciating the landscape and other things like you expressed.
Thank you, madam.
Thank
you. Thanks to you.
We'll end the program with a word of thanks. I highly request Dr. Saravanan to extend a word of thanks. Over to you, Saravanan.
Thank you, sir, and it's indeed a great
privilege and so proud privilege to propose vote of thanks on behalf of Velta family, all the learned colleagues and the fraternity, and it's I deem it a pleasure once again to extend my hearty heartfelt thanks to all the participants first, because without whom this webinar would have not have become this huge success. And I would also take this opportunity to thank Vidya Sri for proposing this welcome note, and Dr. Nagakala Madam for gracing the occasion with despite her tight schedule. It is first day, that is though it is a holiday, without spending time that is with for personal thing, and she has graced the occasion with her wonderful felicitation. Thank you, Madam Nagakala Madam, for gracing the occasion. Also, I take this opportunity to thank Preeti Balakrishnan from Auxilium College, Vellore, for welcoming, for introducing the webinar chair for this day, as well as I also thank Professor Valli Madam, the assistant professor and head of the department, Bargur Government Arts and Science College for Women, and for introducing this today's presenter, Dr. Bindu Narayan. And thank you, ma'am. I also would like to extend my heartfelt thanks to Professor Venkateshwara sir for wonderfully moderating the entire webinar session, and for his all his technical support. Also, we record our sincere appreciation as well as heartfelt thanks once again to Professor Venkateshwara sir. I also take this opportunity to thank all these learned and elite and professors and research scholars, student friends who have made this this webinar a grand success by your commitment, by taking your time off, as well as that shows your commitment for self-development as well as professional development. And let us continue this journey of excellence in learning and development in the days to come as well. And kudos to each and every one of you. Thank you so much for gracing this occasion once again. Good night, all of you. Thank you everyone. And a special thanks to Bindu Narayan ma'am for gracing this occasion despite her busy schedule. You know that she is the pretty most busiest person, because she is known and busy with teaching, researching, as well as this doing this programs on AAR. I know how busy she is. Despite that, she is with us. Thanks a lot once again, madam, for gracing the occasion. And Lalita madam, we are so very grateful for you for giving us the lead in getting madam, and we are really delighted and so very thankful for such an interesting and enlightening presentation. And kudos to each and every one of you once again.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, and good night, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bindu ma'am.
Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Thank you, Raghavan sir, Veera Raghavan sir. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you, Lalita ma'am. Thank you, and good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, and good night.
Bindu ma'am, I am Prema from Madurai Meenakshi College.
Okay.
You remember me?
Yeah,
I'm
I do.
2011 DRB batch.
Okay. How are you?
Yes, ma'am, I'm fine. Very happy to listen to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Thank
So
you,
where are
ma'am.
you now?
Prema ma'am, thanks for joining us, and sometime you can also plan for a presentation in the days to come.
Sure, sir. You have recollected our orientation teachers to this platform, and thank you so much, sir.
And we are very proud and fortunate to have you all today, and thanks for joining us, ma'am.
Yes, sir. Bindu ma'am, I am now Madurai Meenakshi College, ma'am. I am Arul Selvi Maria. Do you remember Arul Selvi Maria, Prema, Gandhimadi?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, yeah.
We'll
Thank
catch
you
up.
so
We'll
much.
catch up one day.
Yes, ma'am. Definitely, ma'am. Sure, ma'am. Thank you
Take
so much,
care.
ma'am.
Thank you for attending. Take care.
Yeah, my love and regards to you, ma'am.
Thank you. Take care.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Bye.
Thank you, ma'am.
Valli ma'am, I should thank you.
Ma'am, it took 2 hours for me to edit and cut short your profile.
I just told you.
No, you deserve it, ma'am. And that is such a nice profile. Amazing profile. I too excited, and I left it to the description of Valli, ma'am. So she did really well, amazingly well. Wonderful intellectual, ma'am.
I will introduce you all to professors who are walking encyclopedias. I can introduce you to Nirmal Selvamani sir, who talks about oikos and environmental theory. Everybody who studies environmental theory should study Nirmal Selvamani sir. Then I can introduce you to another professor. They are all so good in English and in literature. So just give me some time, Sarvan. I will try getting them all in.
Please,
Only
ma'am,
thing
we
is
will
that-
be very highly obliged to you if you give us some lead in other professors also.
And only thing is, I don't know whether this timing will fit, but let me just see because they are all very busy. But,
I know, they are extremely busy. I understand that.
But,
And we will wait, ma'am. Not an issue. We will slowly, we will rope in all the
just
people.
give me some time, so I'll just coordinate. I'll
Understood.
coordinate and I'll get you some very good speakers.
Great, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am. We are very, happy.
Take care.
to know
It's my
that.
pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you,
Good night, ma'am.
ma'am, once again.
Thank you, ma'am. It's my pleasure, ma'am, to introduce such a great personality.
No, nobody is great, ma'am. That's all an illusion. No one's great.
Valli ma'am, she actually, just with a poem, the road not taken, when I invited her to my college for a session, for ACT, this thing, she's my close friend and sister actually. So, both of us are the same pool. So, she's a wonderful person. She just took a topic on decision making. With one poem, road not taken, she completed the session.
Ma'am, we would have this, once again the same kind of same presentation in the days to come. Maybe madam has to spare time with us. We will definitely have it, ma'am.
She'll do, sir. She'll do wonderful. Yes.
Yeah.
She'll do. Thank you, Bindu.
Thank you so much for all your kind words. I don't think I deserve it, but anyway, I'll take it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, madam. Yes, wonderful. As a person, you deserve it. Wonderful. Yeah. Thank you.
Good night. Good night.
Thank you and good night, ma'am. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you all, Palan members. Thank you so much. Valli ma'am, thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
I feel you're happy with her being introduced.
Really, ma'am, extremely happy. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll get you, sir. She's this thing, and she translates and she does wonderful work with All India Radio and other work,
Yeah.
So
Madam
she
is
knows
very
the
busy
media
and
language and everything, yeah. She's having a pool of fun. She's been with the British Council, that, this, and everything. She knows the importance of languages. So both of us, when she was actually trained by my father when she got into All India Radio. As a senior announcer, my father was a senior
And
announcer.
I thought of giving this job of introducing Bindu madam to this forum today, but I understood that you are very busy with other activities, so I shouldn't.
No. See,
I shouldn't trouble you.
if I introduce, it doesn't make a difference. If you introduce, it makes a difference.
Yeah. That's why I assigned this job to Valli madam.
No. She will again feel the same heat, right?
She did really well, and we are very happy.
No, actually, no. Only professionally we call her. I call her madam, or she calls me Lalita, or whatever it is. Apart from it, we are sisters.
Amazing. That's a bond.
I was wondering while going through her profile, ma'am. So
No,
much,
she's
because
actually
I don't know. I'm so confused what to say, what not to say.
No. She actually, when she entered All India Radio, she was trained by my father. She used to say, my father